So you had a gun in your purse?
I had a gun in my purse, and this guy wouldn't leave me alone because he was just sure I was playing hard to get and that I was really...
I get very emotional when people bring it up.
Sharing 6 decades together, deeply devoted since I turned 18, meaning 60 years alongside a partner who remained completely hidden from the public eye. He absolutely rejected any cameras and denied every single press request, becoming a total ghost the second his wife hit the big time, though I adored him beyond words. Countless fans spent years wondering about Carl Dean's identity, with plenty of folks even today doubting whether your spouse is actually a real human being, which is something I completely understand. Folks questioned his reality and reasons for hiding, claiming she fabricated him to cover up hidden truths, until he passed away at 82 on March 3rd, 2025. Finally, stepping into the light, she is laying it all bare, admitting her profound struggles and opening up about a deeply personal vow. This wasn't the vow whispered while gripping his hand during his final breaths, but rather a completely different pledge sworn on their marriage night, unlocking the mystery behind his lifelong disappearance. Penning that famous track was my way of showing eternal gratitude for his support, explaining why country's biggest superstar ended up tying the knot with a total phantom who avoided the spotlight entirely. What exactly were his demands? What solemn oath did she take? And what top-secret words did she murmur during his dying seconds that the public never knew? The truth is finally surfacing, revealing details far more devastatingly gorgeous and grounded than anyone guessed, leaving me sobbing just as fiercely as I chuckled. Here lies the hidden romance between the iconic singer and Carl Dean, kicking off back in 1964 when she rolled into Music City, armed with merely a flimsy bag and massive hopes. Barely 18 and stepping right off the mountain transit, the youngster was literally sporting the exact same outfit she wore to get her diploma the previous evening. Skipping the major studios and broadcasting booths, she headed straight for a coin laundry to freshen up her wardrobe first, which is exactly where she locked eyes with a 21-year-old cruising past in his pristine Chevy. Hitting the brakes upon noticing her was typical male behavior she had grown completely accustomed to, constantly dealing with lingering glances, hollering, and relentless focus on her looks. Yet this particular guy stood out from the pack, lowering his glass to shout a completely surprising warning about her catching too many rays out in that heat. Skipping the usual sleazy comments or wolf whistles, this random passerby showed pure care for her baking in the daytime scorcher, and the singer frequently recalled being absolutely stunned by exactly where his eyes focused. Seeing this incredibly handsome fella ride past in his ride, my rural roots meant chatting up every single person, because ignoring folks simply makes you look like a total snob. Giving people the cold shoulder honestly just paints you as a total drag, though his incredibly sincere curiosity about my personality and life story felt wonderfully unique, eventually introducing himself as Carl Dean. Running a small asphalt business laying concrete around town, this regular blue-collar local completely lacked any ties to the massive music industry, literally just cruising past that specific coin laundry at the absolute perfect cinematic second. The contractor instantly fell head over heels, confessing later that his initial reaction was planning their wedding, rapidly followed by absolute awe over her jaw-dropping beauty. Asking him to drop by the relative's spot where she crashed led to him happily knocking on the door, followed by back-to-back return visits the very next couple of afternoons. Making dedicated daily trips for 7 straight days just to court her, their initial outing totally skipped the glitz, opting instead for family introductions and grabbing fast food burgers, which she found incredibly endearing. To him, she hung the moon, yet both remained blissfully unaware they had just sparked a 58-year romance before officially tying the knot outside of Music City back in 1966. Skipping the typical paparazzi madness and heavy press expected for a booming country artist, our 1966 nuptials unexpectedly happened while I was still locked under contract with a major studio. Because the executives poured serious cash into my brand, they fiercely opposed the wedding and begged for a delay, which I stubbornly brushed off without a second thought. Tracking down a tiny chapel and a willing minister defied the corporate bigwigs, who desperately pleaded for her to postpone everything to protect their grand promotional blueprints. Fearing a spouse might derail her trajectory, the lovers fled 150 miles to a sleepy Georgia town, ensuring absolute anonymity away from prying hometown journalists. Exactly 5 souls witnessed the vows, consisting solely of the bride, groom, the clergyman, his spouse, and the singer's beloved mama. Ditching bridal parties and grand receptions entirely, the 20-year-old girl and her 23-year-old beau swapped lifelong vows in private, instantly triggering an unexpected situation that ultimately mapped out their incredibly unique marital dynamic for the rest of their days. With her trajectory skyrocketing through prominent television gigs and massive radio airplay, the talented songstress rapidly cemented her incredible status as a household name. Navigating elite banquets and endless networking naturally accompanied skyrocketing fame, prompting her to desperately plead with her man to hit just a single red carpet together so she could proudly flaunt him to the entire industry. Eager to parade her soulmate globally, she successfully convinced him to suit up in a rented tux, deeply admiring his incredibly sharp looks as the devoted duo bravely braced for the ruthless paparazzi storm. The evening tanked spectacularly, leaving her partner utterly agonizing from the instant they crossed the threshold. Completely baffled by the phony chatter, bizarre politics, and shallow industry games, he awkwardly suffered through the entire formal function, obsessively watching the clock and counting down the exact minutes until their escape. Ripping off his uncomfortable formal wear in the parking lot before even reaching their ride, he firmly told his bride on the drive back that he'd forever back her massive dreams and unconditionally cheer on her success. Yet that pivotal moment birthed a foundational vow, practically guaranteeing the loyal husband spent the next 58 years actively dodging every single gala, ceremony, and red carpet appearance alongside his superstar spouse. Free from any bitterness or envy, this solemn pledge meant pouring endless affection and rock-solid backing into her corner without fail. Rooting fiercely for her from the background meant facing confused critics who constantly labeled her mysterious partner as a total oddball who bizarrely preferred hiding away from normal everyday society. People endlessly questioned his bizarre invisibility, as the iconic singer absolutely skyrocketed through the 1970s, completely dominating the country music charts, before seamlessly conquering both mainstream pop radio and major Hollywood blockbusters. Rampant gossip questioned the marriage's legitimacy and his actual whereabouts, sparking wild theories that he was totally fictional or just a cover for her close pal Judy. Deflecting rumors of a fake PR romance and her own ambitions beyond rural life, the artist consistently defended her man simply as a reserved introvert who despised huge gatherings. While insisting he backed her uniquely, she secretly grasped a profound truth about his mindset that flew right over the public's head following that spectacularly failed formal outing. He warned that losing his anonymity to the camera flashes would totally ruin his freedom to browse car shops or enjoy a peaceful afternoon at the baseball diamond. Surrendering his casual weekend errands to crowds of crazed fans just wasn't worth the headache, and as long as their incredible bond remained rock solid behind closed doors, absolutely nothing else in the world truly mattered to them. Listen, I really have zero desire to snoop around in his business. There are plenty of other things occupying my time rather than pacing my bedroom wondering, gee, what is Carl up to this evening? Could he be hanging out with some mystery person? Make no mistake, Carl Dean never dodged the spotlight out of embarrassment over his superstar wife. He stayed out of sight simply to preserve his own identity. The guy cherished an incredibly ordinary, low-key lifestyle. He enjoyed doing manual labor, managing his paving company, hitting the open road in his camper, casting a line in the water, and just relaxing on the couch. You absolutely do not need celebrity status for any of those hobbies. Paparazzi flashes would only ruin the vibe. If tying the knot with Dolly required surrendering his peace and quiet, he wanted no part of the deal. Therefore, the couple struck a very specific bargain. She got to shine as the ultimate icon. He got to remain completely off the radar. She strolled down every flashy premiere carpet solo. Meanwhile, he rooted for her success from the comfort of their living room. Sure, that dynamic might seem terribly isolating or depressing to outsiders, yet they constantly swore this unusual setup was perfect for them. Oh, awesome, a brand new Dollywood cap. It actually has the park's name right across the front. Yes, classic Dolly style. Plus, this thing is made of thick corduroy, which will feel absolutely fantastic in the blistering August heat. I see you usually sport one too. Back in 1986, the legendary singer launched Dollywood, her sprawling amusement park located right in Tennessee. Countless fans have strolled past those turnstiles over the decades. Naturally, her image plastered every surface. You could hear her signature tunes blasting on a continuous loop. While her vibrant spirit saturated every square inch of the property, you could not locate a lone picture of her husband anywhere on the grounds. Once, the marketing team practically begged him to snap a few PR shots, and he finally caved with a hilarious stipulation. He insisted they let him wear a brown paper sack completely covering his face. The craziest part is that he was completely serious. They genuinely did the photo shoot exactly like that. The ultimate phantom spouse stayed hidden away, even inside his partner's massive empire. Interestingly, a track penned by the country icon back in 1973 reveals the inner workings of her relationship with Carl Dean. We are talking about Jolene, the ultimate anthem of a desperate wife pleading with a rival to back off her husband. The catchy chorus belts out that famous name on repeat. Unsurprisingly, the smash hit skyrocketed straight to the top of the country billboards. Countless artists have released their own versions of the classic. It easily secured a spot in the Grammy Hall of Fame, but the wildest detail is its real-life origin. During the honeymoon phase of their relationship, the superstar caught onto a sketchy pattern. Her man kept making frequent trips down to the local bank. Honestly, he lingered around the branch far longer than their bank accounts required. Suspicions began brewing in her mind. It turned out there was a stunning, leggy ginger behind the counter giving him way too much special treatment. This employee brazenly batted her eyelashes at him, stroked his ego, and gave him every reason to keep returning. The country star caught them in the act. She later confessed during an NPR interview that the teller was hopelessly infatuated with her guy. Meanwhile, he ate up all that extra adoration and kept finding excuses to make deposits. Eventually, the couple turned the whole awkward situation into a hilarious gag. Dolly would playfully tease him about practically living at the financial branch. She would crack jokes claiming their net worth hardly, justified daily withdrawals. Did she truly feel threatened, though? Absolutely, since the teller possessed gorgeous features the singer lacked, especially those long legs. The rival stood nearly 6 feet tall, flaunting assets a petite blonde could only dream of having. Oh, that lady was absolute garbage. Naturally, the legendary songwriter handled the crisis in her own signature way. She channeled all those intense feelings of envy, self-doubt, and sheer panic over losing her soulmate straight into a musical masterpiece. Oddly enough, the iconic title actually came from a totally different ginger kid seeking an autograph after a gig. However, the raw heartbreak laced throughout the lyrics was completely genuine. Terrifying thoughts of her husband leaving her for a glamazon with superior looks and elegance kept her up at night. Consequently, the track exploded into a massive cultural sensation. Thankfully, the real-life drama wrapped up without a messy divorce. Her husband stuck around and never entertained the thought of abandoning ship. All that banter with the teller was completely innocent. It just served as a tiny confidence booster for an average Joe tied to a global superstar. Every single evening, he returned straight to his wife's arms. He remained fiercely loyal for an impressive 58 years. The singer might never realize she narrowly dodged becoming a walking heartbreak cliché. Then again, she probably senses it deeply. Perhaps that explains her reluctance to perform that specific hit live nowadays. You really cannot take things at face value. She previously confessed to a crowd that the track hits way too close to home, dredging up terrifying memories of nearly losing her marriage. Yet, the devoted pair missed out on one major life milestone they fully anticipated hitting after tying the knot. They never had any babies. During a 2014 interview with Billboard, the singer confessed they always figured parenthood was in the cards. They certainly never used any protection to prevent a pregnancy. In reality, they were actively hoping a little one would come along. The couple even went as far as brainstorming baby names. A future daughter was slated to be named Carla. That adorable moniker mashed up both of their first names, perfectly symbolizing a sweet legacy they could leave behind. Unfortunately, that dream child never materialized. All throughout the late 1960s and the entire 1970s, her celebrity status skyrocketed while the couple settled into married life. Yet their nursery remained empty. The singer's fame kept growing, but their family size did not. Initially, the duo blamed the delay on bad luck and busy schedules. Eventually, a creeping suspicion set in that a medical issue might be blocking their progress. By 1984, the 35-year-old artist finally received a definitive explanation. Doctors discovered she suffered from endometriosis, an agonizing disorder wreaking havoc on her reproductive organs. For ages, she battled mystery abdominal cramps and severe gynecological pain that left physicians scratching their heads. This breakthrough diagnosis connected all the dots, ultimately forcing her to make a completely heartbreaking medical choice. At age 36, the superstar had to undergo a partial hysterectomy. Any lingering dreams of birthing her own babies permanently died inside a Nashville surgical suite. News outlets reported the icon scrapped multiple scheduled gigs to seek treatment at a medical center in New York. The fallout took a massive toll on her, making those particular years brutally difficult on both her mind and body. The psychological aftermath hit her like a freight train. In her autobiography, she recalled suddenly feeling incredibly old and washed up overnight. It dragged her down into a severe, crippling depression. Coming from a massive household of 11 kids, she adored toddlers and genuinely felt destined for motherhood, so the reality check nearly broke her spirit. Her husband served as her absolute rock during the crisis. He never once pointed fingers or diminished her worth as a woman. He completely rejected the idea that a childless marriage was somehow a failure. The man simply wrapped his arms around her, promising that having each other was plenty. Over the decades, the beloved singer managed to embrace her childless path. She openly states that a higher power always maps out our destinies. The legend figures the universe kept her from raising her own brood so she could basically adopt every child in the world, which she happily accomplished. The icon launched the Imagination Library, an incredible nonprofit that has shipped upwards of 200 million complimentary books to youth globally. Furthermore, she stepped up as the official godmother to pop star Miley Cyrus. Essentially, she transformed into the nation's favorite aunt, a literal fairy godmother, and America's sweetheart. Shortly before her husband passed, she admitted the elderly couple would frequently joke about dodging a bullet by skipping parenthood. They joked about avoiding the constant stress of raising a family, yet her tone always carried a faint trace of melancholy. That subtle sadness hinted the emotional scar never totally vanished. Frankly, she would have absolutely crushed it as a mom. She recognizes her maternal instincts, and her husband definitely saw it too. However, destiny dealt them a different hand entirely. Folks constantly corner the singer to ask for the secret to a 58-year marriage. She usually joked about needing to unpack decades of history before giving an answer. That kind of longevity is basically unheard of in the music business, a world notorious for messy splits, trashy tabloids, and fleeting romances. Still, her signature response always left interviewers in stitches. Beneath the punchlines lay a ton of solid wisdom. The superstar constantly traveled for studio sessions, film gigs, TV appearances, and endless corporate duties. Meanwhile, her guy stayed put in Nashville, managing his paving crew and enjoying absolute tranquility. The duo rarely suffocated one another with constant togetherness. That healthy distance prevented any chance of them getting annoyed by the daily grind. Of course, their incredible bond required much more than just separate schedules. The elusive husband actually coined a hilarious pet name for his 5-foot-tall megastar bride. He regularly referred to her as Q-Tip, or occasionally Pee-wee. The singer absolutely ate it up. She openly admitted they shared a wonderfully twisted sense of comedy. In her eyes, making each other laugh serves as the ultimate glue for a lifelong partnership. Additionally, the pair reached a solid consensus regarding possessiveness, which essentially meant throwing jealousy out the window entirely. The icon insisted that envy simply did not exist in their household. He fully embraced her playful banter with others, and he absolutely charmed people right back. Naturally, the public let their imaginations run wild over those comments. Reporters straight up asked the superstar if they operated under an open marriage. She once boldly confirmed the rumor. It was an open dynamic, but strictly off limits when it came to the bedroom, joking she would murder him if he crossed that line. Her blunt transparency felt incredibly genuine. Window shopping was totally acceptable. Soaking up a little harmless validation from outsiders never bothered either of them. The boundary, however, remained incredibly strict. Checking out the menu was cool, but ordering was grounds for divorce. An indestructible wall of trust anchored their entire romance. The man practically never interrogated her about her whereabouts. She let him do his own thing whenever she hit the road. They gave one another total freedom, allowing their individual personalities and separate lives to flourish naturally. Speaking to Playboy back in 1978, Dolly explained that her husband stayed completely out of her business affairs. He left the management, contracts, and creative directions entirely up to her team. He had total faith in her professional hustle. In return, she knew her man would always be waiting at the house. He stayed the exact same guy from day one, totally unfazed by the glitz and glamour, adoring the real woman beneath the rhinestones. Despite having completely opposite interests, their unique bond just clicked perfectly. Those final years brought heavy heartbreak. The The famously private guy who dodged the spotlight for 60 years started fading away mentally. Inner Circle sources revealed he was fighting Alzheimer's disease. That brilliant, witty mind slowly started deteriorating. Dolly kept the tragic ordeal under wraps, fiercely guarding his dignity while his memories slipped into darkness. However, she completely rearranged her tours to stay home more often. She became his constant companion during those dark days. One specific detail about this period is absolutely gut-wrenching. Despite his mind slipping and familiar surroundings becoming confusing blanks, his entire face would brighten the second his wife walked in. The current day of the week might escape him. Breakfast was easily forgotten, but his girl was unforgettable. Deep down beneath that cruel mental fog, his soul still recognized his lifelong partner. His whole expression transformed upon seeing her. Their profound connection remained alive, just hidden beneath an unbeatable illness. During those last few weeks together, the superstar made her husband one final, beautiful vow about reuniting later. An insider shared that Dolly ensured his absolute comfort right at the very end. Gripping his hand tightly, she whispered her sweet farewells and endless love. She assured him they would eventually reunite. Then, on March 3rd, 2025, the 82-year-old quietly passed away. Their legendary 58-year marriage ended right before their 59th anniversary. The famously elusive partner had permanently left this earth. Suddenly, the country icon found herself completely flying solo for the very first time since she was 18 at a Nashville laundromat. Following the devastating loss, the singer dove straight back into her usual grind. Just 2 days later, she attended Dollywood's 40th anniversary bash. Flashing her signature grin for the cameras, she looked perfectly fine to the public. Behind closed doors, though, returning to a vacant house was absolutely crushing her spirit. She mentioned instinctually grabbing her phone to dial his number, only to face reality. Those tiny, everyday marriage habits suddenly became painful reminders of his permanent absence. One heartbreaking incident at her theme park really summed it all up. Footage exploded online showing the grieving star gracefully greeting a thrilled young fan with a huge, warm smile. She gave that kid a magical memory while looking perfectly joyful on the outside. Later on, she confessed she was actually completely consumed by intense grief over losing her husband right then. She admitted to sobbing uncontrollably in her vehicle afterward. While fans saw an upbeat superstar, the devastated widow was staring down a lifetime of lonely car rides. 3 days post-tragedy, she dropped a heartfelt tribute track titled "If You Had Not Been There." The lyrics praised him for being her unwavering rock and ultimate believer throughout her chaotic global stardom. Promoting the release on Instagram, she fondly recalled falling head over heels for him at just 18 years of age. She reflected on their 60 incredible years, noting that epic romances survive forever through music and memories, crowning him the absolute star of her world for 58 married years. A random laundromat encounter and a cheesy sunburn pickup line sparked an eternal flame. Their legendary bond completely bypassed all that typical, messy Hollywood drama. It was never some fake PR stunt plastered across gossip rags. They were simply soulmates who crossed paths and locked in forever, built around a single, hilarious promise he made. He begged her to never drag him to another red carpet event again. She respected that boundary for 58 years, promising only that she would find him in the afterlife someday. You can bet she will honor that final vow. Fans spent decades desperately craving interviews and sneak peeks at the notoriously elusive man behind the music legend. People were totally baffled by her ghost of a husband. In hindsight, his intense privacy had absolutely nothing to do with shame or toxic jealousy. It never meant their relationship was falling apart. He simply stepped back out of pure, unselfish devotion, realizing her massive star power belonged entirely to her adoring public. He knew that embracing fame meant losing his own identity completely. Therefore, he happily faded into the background, choosing a quiet, supportive role far away from the flashing bulbs. Playing the hidden partner to country music's biggest icon sounds crazy, but they absolutely crushed it for 58 years. The superstar is currently 79. She keeps hustling and dazzling her fans as always, though her house feels undeniably empty. Her biggest cheerleader is missing from the couch, where he happily watched her conquer the world in total peace. While tomorrow is never promised, she is absolutely certain about her ultimate destination once the curtain finally closes. She swore she would reunite with her man, and this icon never breaks a vow. If this emotional deep dive touched your heart, go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button. We have plenty more incredible tales covering real romance, heavy heartbreak, and unsung heroes dropping soon. Drop your thoughts on this legendary, unconventional marriage down below. Do you find his off-the-grid lifestyle incredibly sweet, or just weird? Sound off in the comments section. She hilariously credits her endless honeymoon phase to giving each other plenty of space. Honestly, that separation clearly worked wonders, perfectly balancing her chaotic touring life with his preference for total solitude.